Hey, I've not done this in a long while, but I'm back! Back doing Tails Engine. I never stopped working on it really, I just stopped doing the videos, because I didn't really find them very interesting. But this is going to be very interesting. At the moment, the resource manager, it runs like in a context. So it's owned by whatever context it runs in. So if it's part of a level, then it loads all of its stuff like during the level existing, and then when the level goes away, it goes away, all of its resources go away, everything gets cleaned up automatically because of Rye or whatever, the smart pointer stuff. However, now I don't want that, because obviously each level having their own resource manager, if two levels share the same thing, it's either going to be loaded twice or it's going to be loaded into an external thing, like a global resource manager, but then it's going to be hard to clean that up when both levels are gone and a third level doesn't use it, because they can't really do that. The resource manager isn't set up for that. So instead, I'm going to have a global resource manager, a single global resource manager, which just manages any resource currently loaded in the game, and it's going to be using shared pointers just because they make it a lot easier really. At the moment, I'm using void pointers, which isn't that bad, but they are deleted via a custom deleter, which means that it's the same size as a shared pointer anyway. It's twice the size as a normal pointer, so there's no performance difference here with me using shared pointers. It just means that it's going to be easier to do things. So anyway, yeah, I'm also going to have a actual resource based class as well, because currently it's a void pointer and it just works based on a concept where it must have a specific constructor to work. So you can see it uses a specific constructor passing in a path, and obviously then the only way you can have an error from that is to raise an exception. So we do a try catch, and it's all just a bit messy. So I'm going to redo it. Shared pointers, base resource class, all of this fun stuff basically. So first and foremost, I think we should gut everything apart from these. I think these default things could be just fine. Get rid of everything. Don't need all of these. Also don't need all of these. Here we go. Nice and simple. And I also want to make it so that you can make your own resource types quite easily. So if there's like a texture format which you want to support, you want to be able to import that format and then use it as a resource. So I'm thinking we either have each format as its own resource, or we have a more abstract like texture resource which can then import like PNGs and JPGs or whatever, and then those would just get turned into the texture resource. I think that's what SFML does. Chances are I'm going to use that. And also using a resource based class means that it's going to be a bit harder to interface with the default SFML stuff, so I'll either need to abstract those out, or I'll need to provide some easy way of just getting the underlying SFML object or something, if there is one. So many fun things to be done. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to have the resource manager work, because it could be a singleton. I'm not super keen on that. It could just be a member of the engine, but then again, if it's a member of the engine, then that'll be a bit strange, because then only things that have access to the engine can use it. So I want it to be a singleton, but I was also reading through the source code of the Spartan engine recently, and the way they do it is essentially most things are pretty much singletons. It's just instead of having the singleton itself in the class, they store all of the variables in the source file. So this resource manager, for example, you would have an anonymous namespace. I didn't mean to do that. Which would then have, like a map or something of this would be stored here, and then you would just have static functions in here which interface with this, which is kind of C-like, I think. So anyway, that's kind of I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to use a singleton just because it's I don't know. Or actually, if I do the thing of having just the data in here instead of a singleton, yeah, if I don't use a singleton, I'm probably not even going to use a class. I'm just going to use a namespace. And then just have a namespace called like resources or something, or like res, and then that will be functions like load resource or something, right? Which are just general global functions. Yeah, I think I might do that, and then I can have like an implementation manager class in here just to make things a little bit easier. Yeah, I'll start with that. Let's say I'll start with that, and then see what goes on. So that means we don't need any of this. We would need this actually. This would need to be on every function. So if we didn't have a templated function, we'd need to have the, you know, the Tails API thing. Even though this isn't actually need to be used. Yeah, like here, every function would need to have it instead of just having it on the class, and then every function just by default has it. This wouldn't. This doesn't even need to exist because I don't even support dynamic linking. And this is only used for dynamic linking for DLLs, the DLLs for Windows. And because it's only statically linked, I don't even need this, because normally you'd have like, what, underscore import or something? Like, no, decal spec. Yeah, decal spec, and then you'd have import or export or something. But no, I'm kind of adding it anyway, just because I want to have that practice for some reason. I don't really need it though. So let's just do that. So we can have a class here. We can say resource manager, and this would just be a container for the. Let's make it a structure actually. This would just be the container for the data. So what we can have is we need to include unordered map. This would be unordered map of, let's make it UN32, and let's say, well, it needs to be a shared pointer to the base class, but we don't have the base class yet, so we need to do that. And we can just call this resources. Actually, no, let's not even have the structure. We don't need it. I'm going to put it in its own namespace though, just because I might as well. So what we need is just a resource class, and actually we might as well just have a resource folder while we're at it. Make a new CMake lists and see whatever the audio one is doing. Just copy that. And then just have resource like that. And then in the source files we can have the same thing. Okay, sick. I'll probably put the resource manager file in here at some point. But until then, we need to run CMake. Brilliant. We haven't added it to the main CMake lists. This one, audio components, network, resources. Resources. Even though we don't even have network stuff, that's just something I wanted to try and do. Didn't really work out. I'm leaving it there anyway, just because it's for posterity. Okay, there we go. Now we can run our CMake, and there we go. We have resource. Have our class, Tails API, iResource. I'm going to call it because it is technically going to be an interface. So we want a virtual destructor. We also want a virtual rule for load, and this will be the file itself, I would imagine. It's either the path or the file itself. What do we normally use to interface with a file? It's an F stream, right? A file stream. So I could just pass it a file stream or something. I'll do the path for now, and I want to have this be pure, and then I also want a post load, just for it to do anything that it needs to do on post load, and then it can also have some other stuff. What I don't get is why, when you define a virtual destructor, does it insist on saying you need all of the other big 5 things, even if I have no members? I have no members, so what memory is it going to be moving around? I don't know. And they're all going to be defaulted anyway, so well, there you go. Now it's not complaining anymore. So now we have our resource base. I don't know why I gave it a source file. I suppose it might come in handy later. I don't know. I'll leave it in just in case. Give it a namespace. But now here we can include our tails resources resource. Give our iResource here, saying it's never used. Yeah. So now we need to be able to actually load a resource. We need to have a non-templated function which will return a shared pointer to an iResource. We need to have this as a forward declared thing here. Shared pointer to an iResource saying, what's it saying? Because what I'm thinking is, we obviously need the function here to not be templated so that we can define it in here to actually have access to this resources thing. But do we want the user to also have access to this function? Because if we're loading a resource, we either want to load it from a file and specify its type. That's all got to be templated, essentially. So what I'm thinking is, we just have it as a singleton, just have it all in the header, essentially. Yeah, I'm thinking we don't do this. That's my thought process. Don't do that. And just have it as a class. So we can have a static resource manager get like that. We also then want our unordered map, which we need to include in here. Our resource. I could just include resource actually. Might as well. And then, yeah, call it resources. So then here we can have our static auto load resource, load it from a file, and then we can probably do constant expression to figure out what the return type is based on the file path. Maybe, methinks. Or we can specify it with an enum or something. Or we could just specify it with the class of the resource, meaning we don't even need to do any of this. We could do an if constant expression and then say, you know, if this path relates to a thing. I mean, I could. It probably needs to be templated for that. It's not even a valid type for a non-type template parameter. Oh, a dear. What is a valid type? An integer? Can I even have a string? No. Can I have a... I can have this. Because then obviously you can say, you know, this, and because it's in a template, you can do that, and then, you know, if I were to do this, I could say load resource. Just have, you know, that. Path equals empty. Yeah, so I assume it's generally just very trivial types you can have in a template, so you can't have a path in there. So this just won't work then. However, we can do derives from. we can get our concepts. Say derives resource. This is our resource type. We obviously just want to return a resource type shared pointer. So then we can say, firstly we want to create the shared pointer here. I don't know what this is complaining about. Non-static member. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm going to try and place, we need to get the hash essentially from the path. So we can say, let's just call it ID. We can say hash. We need to include maths. We can't hash the path because it doesn't do the substitution, so we can instead say, just give it a string really. And do the ID, and then, yeah, sure, we'll give it a size t instead. Yeah, the ID, and then we can say make shared, where we can obviously give it the res t here, and then we might as well have constructor stuff as well. And make sure it's constructible, and then we can have just a pointer to it, and then we can say res. I might as well make it a type of resource, just so that I have the completion here. Which actually, funnily enough, I don't think we need to do this because this isn't a friend. Make it a friend. There we go. So now I think this might... No, it won't. Okay. Never mind. But now it will. Here we go. We can say load. We want to load via the path. And then we can do whatever. And then we can say res post load. And then return. Just return that. So this feels very simple. Pretty sure it is very simple. That means that to get a resource, you need to know the path. So how would you take, for example, if you wanted the player, well, obviously for levels loading in assets, this is completely fine because they just do it automatically. They just go through their list of, okay, we need this, we need this, we need this, and it just loads everything in. But for when you're writing code and you're like, I want the player to use this sprite, how do you specify that? You have to say, hey, get me this ID or whatever, and then you'd need some kind of easy way for the person programming the user to search for that asset. In Unreal, you don't really do that. You use the editor for that, and that handles all the stuff for you. I'm not entirely sure, I'm going to be honest. Yeah, I think I'm just going to have it so that you load it yourself, or whatever. Doesn't really matter, I suppose. Anyway, so we load the resource, we create it, we load it, we then do a post load, and then we return it. I suppose we don't even need to do this. We could have this as a shared pointer, and then just return res. Yeah, anyway, so that's that. But then obviously the problem is this resource manager now has a reference to the resource. And I'm pretty sure I did actually implement a resource manager which had weak pointers, which every time a shared pointer that was pointing to the same memory as the weak pointer was destroyed, it would check the reference count. If it was 0 or less than 0 or like whatever, then it would destroy the weak pointer, remove the map entry. The problem with that is if you load a resource and you don't immediately use it, then it will just immediately destroy itself, because the shared pointer gets created in this function, it then gets returned, the function's reference count then gets decremented, and if that shared pointer is not then immediately saved somewhere, then it's 0 and it gets destroyed. With this, they're all active until, you know, the resource manager's destroyed. Yeah, so I think actually using the weak pointer is probably the better option, because I feel like forcing people to actually use the shared pointer that's returned is a good idea. Because we can obviously add no discard onto this. Yeah, so I think having a weak pointer is better. This can, and obviously we can lock it to get the shared pointer, and then I believe this would work fine. We just need to then obviously destroy it, remove the map entry once all the things are gone, meaning I think that's the custom deleter. So I have done this before, I just need to look at how I did it, because I can't remember exactly, and it's one of those super niche things that you don't really know off the top of your head how to do, because it's so niche. So I'm just gonna look it up quickly. Okay, I'm just going through the video that I made about the first time I did the asset manager, which is part 3 for anyone wondering, and I'm just gonna copy that, I think, just because I feel like that's much nicer. Yeah, so I have a load function, and then I have specific versions of that, like load texture and stuff. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna have this load resource function. Yeah, and then obviously I didn't know about concepts back then, so I was static asserting. So we need a deleter. So we can just say deleter, and this will be a lambda, which we need to take in the, well, ourself really. Actually, can I have a non-capturing lambda and still use the get static function? Can I do that? So this deleter, we say if, can I do get? What's this one about? Oh, obviously, because I'm looking at string here, so I need to do the hash. We can call this name, and then have the actual ID be this, and just say hash name. If it's expired, then we can erase it. And yeah, it can be moved into this. So now when we do that, when we make it, I don't think make shared supports it. So we need to have a shared pointer to the iResource. Say res, and then we can say we want a new t, a new res t, and the deleter will be a bind, which we need to include functional for that. A bind, we want the deleter, and then the interesting. So I think this is what's going to be going into the arguments here. So we could straight up just give it a size t, and then just pass in ID here. So then this means that res doesn't need to be here. We can have this try and place here will be that we don't want to make shared, we just want to pass in res, I think. That basically. And then load it. We can do a post load as well. Stuff can be done between here if we need to. Other load things. And then that will be that. So then, oh yeah, I didn't actually do the args. I need to forward the args. There we go, forward the args in. Yes, so now what we can do is get a texture. Get resource. We can have a path. One where we can say if resources at the hash of path.string, that essentially needs to get. If we contain it, then we can just return resources at the hash of path.string dot lock. But if we don't, then we can just return null pointer. So that's our get resource. We can then use another one. This wants to be st here, and we want to cast this static pointer cast to rest. We want this to, this can be rest again. This would be a load or a get or load function. So we can say shared pointer get or load resource. Which we can also then just pass in the args as well, really. So what I'm thinking is, we could probably just have this be no. We want to say if get resource. Why can't I not do it? Oh, it's because I have to name it, obviously. Get resource this. We're going to pass in the path. If this is valid, we'll just return res. If not, then we want to return load resource. So this, I think, if we fail to load, then we can return null pointer, and it will remove itself from the map automatically. I just want to quickly delete the other constructors because we don't want to be able to construct it from another thing or equal it to another thing, even though it shouldn't be able to equal it, because there won't be another thing to equal. We'll do it anyway. Can I just private? Can I private this? Yeah, okay. I don't think I need to. Because if you can't create it, then you can't delete it either, but... anyway, there you go, we have that. So, now obviously we just need to implement the things. Oh yeah, want to have a virtual templated thing, which will have... Okay, this will be quite interesting. We want to have a thing here. This will be returning an optional, which will be inside a reference wrapper, and this will be to the T. This will be get underlying or something. Oh yeah, we can't have this. This will be get underlying. It'll be constant. It'll be no discard. Okay, this is where the genius comes in. We have an actual virtual thing here. Return a void pointer and say get underlying implementation, like that. And then here we just return. We say if const auto const. If get underlying implementation is valid, then we can return a depointed static cast to T from results wrapped in an optional. Else return a null optional. So this will do that. This will just return whatever, like reference to whatever data is on the line, and then here we just cast it to whatever we want it to be. And yeah, we should probably check if it succeeds the cast or not, but I don't know. Yeah, we probably should. Whatever. I just want it to be const as well. I think you can put a const here. We have a const void pointer there as well. Yeah, const void. Cast it to a const T, which is all in all put into a const T reference. I believe that's all it is. Because yeah, it's just a pointer. So when you, it's a T pointer, so it's a const T pointer. It's not a pointer. It's not a const pointer to. No, it is a const pointer to T. If it's a const pointer to T, then we want the constant here instead. Get out of here. Because that'll make it a pointer to const T instead of a const pointer to T. I think. We'll figure it out later. It'll be fine. So yeah, we can have that. Do I want it to be a constant in here? No. Can I return? Whatever. I'll just leave it as non-const. Doesn't really matter that much. So that's the basics of that. Maybe having I don't know, a handle or something might be nice. I don't know. I'm not very good at this. Oh, actually, yeah, that's right. Resources might want to depend on other resources, right? And that's where the post load comes in, maybe. Where the load would load in the data itself. File path. Successful. Loads the file's data to a engine usable resource. That's the load. The post load can then be just any dependent resources, or likewise, I don't know. Gets the underlying memory this resource is based on, if any. E.g. SFML's SF texture / SF font / SF sound buffer, etc. Yeah, okay. Sick. Do we want to have dependent stuff? I don't even know. I'm just going to leave it like this for now. I want to have a texture resource. The texture will need a CPP here. Let's do an include. Details / resources / texture. And then here we can do a texture.cpp. We'll do a texture.hpp, but it's not existing yet. So make it. This is the kind of thing that I want to start using. Well, it's one of the things that I want to start using modules for, because I've been using modules a bit recently. I've been trying them out and stuff, and they're really good. They're much better than header and source file combos. They don't need include guards or anything. They you can just have them as one file, which is great. So you just need a source folder instead of a source and include. Right, you can have a source folder anyway with headers and stuff, but I prefer to have a source and include so they're separated, so it's like public and private stuff. And they're just so much nicer to use. I think as well. Yeah, they just feel much nicer to use, I think. Yeah, put that in there. That's doing whatever it's doing. Do the thing. I also want to do level loading, although I probably won't do that now or record it. I don't know. If I include the config and then I include the resources texture. No, that's including itself. Include resource, not texture. Then we can make the class Tails API. See texture. Yeah. Public iResource. I'm gonna make this final, just for now anyway. So we can make this private. We want to have a load function. We want to actually include the SFML texture. To have our SF texture here. And then here we can just say texture.load from file path, and then whatever other stuff we can return it as well. It's just a wrapper for that. Obviously when they got more elaborate, or if they get more elaborate, then we can do more stuff. Then we also need underlying type, the underlying implementation, where we can just return texture. Like that. So now if you have a texture, you can do the templated get underlying, cast it to a texture, and it'll be just fine. Just good. Post load currently doesn't do anything, but that's fine. So now that should work. Our texture should get loaded. That's all fine, really. Yeah, what should probably be happening is, instead of loading it in after you've created the memory, it should load in. Yeah, the actual thing should load in when this is created, like with its constructor. But I suppose if you have this, then it's essentially saying we allow a texture that is 0 width and height and has no pixels, has no like data. It's just an empty texture, and that's allowed, versus a texture always having something in it and it always being loaded from disk or something. Anyway, that's our texture. I know that in here, no, in here, never mind, I don't have any texture stuff going on. Okay, yeah, that's also something I did, which I quite like. Is the components work differently now. We have a transform component, which has children. It works a lot like Unreal Engine's stuff, where you have a base component, which doesn't have a transform or anything. It's just something that adds functionality to an entity. And then you have a transform component, which is the actual visual component, which has a position and stuff. And so entities can have an array of components, and they also have a single root component, which is a transform. And this is their transform, essentially. This root component acts as the entity's position, scale, and stuff in the world. And then all of the other components are just whatever, really. Yes, that's why the entity is actually quite small. It's only 88 bits, or whatever that is. A normal component is only 32, but then a transform component is 246. So if you're making a component and you don't need it to be seen or have a transform or anything, just make a normal component. But if you want it to be like a sprite or something, then make it a transform component. Yeah, the camera component is just a normal component. It doesn't need to draw or anything, because the thing that is actually drawing what's in its view is the level. The level gets an active camera, and it just uses this view instead of this camera actually drawing stuff. So it doesn't need to have a transform, meaning it's relatively small. Anyway, going on a tangent there. I don't know where all this stuff is being used. The level for sure does have a resource manager. And this is the same one that is a thing. It's not a friend, so why is it able to be constructed if this is private? Why is this not throwing a hissy fit? I don't know. Let's delete it. Entities do still have a... where is it? Init components. No, what am I saying? Init components? Load resources, which calls the resource manager. I think what we could do instead is actually here I want to have a... oh no, what am I saying? We don't even need that. We just need to do call it get, don't we, or something? Yeah, we don't even need... I don't know what I'm on about. We don't need... yeah, we can load resources here, but we don't need to put anything in it. And we shouldn't put anything in it. So that's fine there. Don't need that. And I don't actually... yeah, I also changed how levels work. There's no worlds anymore. Worlds don't exist. It's just a level subsystem. The level subsystem manages all the active levels. Yeah, levels can have sublevels, but they point to managed levels by the subsystem. So yeah, it's kind of like a component thing. It's quite cool. Yeah, this is how the view works. You have a default view, and then you have the actual active view, which by default is the default view. But if you change the active view, then it just makes this point to something else. Yeah. So yeah. Resource manager. Let's play. See what monstrous compile errors I get. Okay, UI subsystem. Completely forgot about UI subsystem being a thing. Can I access private member declared in class? See resource manager. Oh, it's because this is a resource manager. Get out of here. Don't need you. Don't need to include it either. This isn't actually being used anywhere here either, so actually the level might still be including it. Yeah, don't include it level. Yeah, here we go, we have this. So this is the stuff. This start is then a separate level to these. These are both components, child components of this component. This is a child component of this component, I think, or it might not be at the moment because I was messing around with stuff, but yeah, it works basically. So that's all good. Does the actual resource loading and stuff work? Absolutely no idea. Let me put this over here. Yeah, I don't. Let's try it. Let's try it. Where's my thing? I also should be doing tests. I really should. I just don't. I'm not that good of a programmer. Okay, I'm a pretty good programmer, but I'm not that good that I do tests. Who do you think I am? Load resources. So here we can just say resource manager, get or load resource. We want to get a texture. And we want to say player.png. And then this will be our texture. Now the issue is obviously the sprite component and all that stuff, they all store their textures and things, their resources as SFML stuff, so I need to change those. But just for now, we can have a shared pointer to the texture. Call it texture. So then here we can say texture equals this, just so it won't get destroyed, and then we can have our sprites set texture here to be a mTexture get underlying, and we want to get the SF texture. So we want to see if it's valid first because it's an optional. Say const. So do that. If it is, then we can say optional here. Now this is a reference. This one's a pointer, I believe. Yeah, this. Yeah, no, this just wants a raw pointer. Yeah, I'll have to change this to just use a shared pointer instead of using an SFML one. I'll just do a shared pointer to the thing. But because I'm not changing that at the moment, we can just do a. What am I even doing? Dereferencing that and then getting the reference of it. Oh, it's a reference wrapper. So we've got to get the reference wrapper thing out. Oh yeah, we can do this, can't we? There we go. So we can do the reference of the thing inside the reference wrapper. There we go. That's good. Yeah, so now we just need to make sure that that's on disk somewhere in our, what is it, Tails engine? I don't even know what the working directory is. It might just be this actually. Let's just see what happens. It doesn't compile. What's this? No matching function overload. To load resource. What do you mean? Oh, because I haven't put the path in. Okay, there you go. I am also realizing I might as well do debug stuff as well. Do some debug printing stuff. So if it fails to do this, we can say failed to load resource at path, and then yeah, actually there should be an error, shouldn't it? There you go. And then we can have another one here saying failed to get resource at path. Couldn't find resource at path, so loading it instead. So this error will come up if this is false, but then straight after this will come up, so it should be all fine. You could be like, failed to get it, and it says couldn't find it, so loading it instead. And then if this fails, then that's really bad. So let me do that, and then yeah, return cannot convert shared pointer to shared pointer TLC texture. Oh yeah, because this is a shared pointer to iResource. We need to cast it to static pointer cast to res t from res. It works. It fails to open the file and it crashes. Failed to load image. Reason unable to open file. Error. Failed to load resource or path. Player.png. Seems like it adds thingy for me, so that's fine. Failed to get it. Couldn't find resource, so loading it instead. Failed to load. Failed to load it. So it's just not finding it. It is crashing as well, which it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be crashing. It should just be returning. I suppose it's because if we say if texture is invalid, then just return, so it doesn't even run that. Yeah, there you go. So we still get this. It's just that now we are able to actually continue because we're not trying to get the underlying type of a variable whose data doesn't exist. So now we just need to put this somewhere, wherever the thing actually is. Maybe in here? No. The absolute path is build source player.png. Build source in here. Ah, assertion. Brilliant. Assertion failed. So this failed to get resource, couldn't find it, so loading it instead. It loaded it. Assertion failed. Geo is texture. Texture to be bound is invalid. Check if the texture is still being used after it's been destroyed. Huh. Texture to be bound is invalid. Maybe that's because it's getting destroyed. I'll delete it. Let's put a print in here. Deleting resource with ID. That. It's not deleting it, it seems. I don't think so. If I get rid of that. Oh, actually, no, I can't because it's a no discard. Actually, it's only a warning. Can I still compile it? Okay. Okay, yeah, so it does delete it. That's fine. I also want to do a different hash function because it seems like if it's got a long file thing, then it's going to go way over the limit of what the integer is. So it seems like because the texture exists, so the texture's not getting deleted, we are able to return it. But we do get this. So if I do a debug and I retry, then we do, oh my goodness, we have engine run, which then calls draw, which then calls draw, which then calls draw on the level subsystem, which then draws the level, which then draws the entity, which then draws the component, which then draws its vertex array. Okay, so it seems like the data in the texture, this thing calls a bind. So it seems like it is an issue with setting. It's obviously an issue with this, right? Because we set the texture, that's just that. But we're trying to get the underlying thing. So if we just turn this into a pointer instead. Right, just make it a t-pointer. And then just return a pass to it, otherwise return null pointer. Do that. And then here we just do opt. Right. Can't convert. Okay, obviously, because it needs to be const. Like that or something. Now, const texture. And now it works. Okay, so it is an issue with the reference wrapper thing. But you know, you can see the texture works. It's all good. I still haven't gotten, what is it, culling or whatever, working, where it doesn't draw stuff outside of the camera. Because I try that, and I then need to be able to have collisions with entities and all of their components, and for some reason I just can't get it to work. I can't get the whole bounds of the entities, like bounding box. I'm just a bit of an idiot, really. So, anyway, you know, epic stuff. I do need to do that at some point, though. Look, deleting resource. Nice. How cool is that? That's very cool. So we have that working. Now we just need to go through the sprite component and actually make the sprite component use the new thing instead of this. So we can have a class C texture here. Instead we can have a shared pointer to C texture. Like that. We can then say shared pointer C texture to get texture here. I'm actually gonna put it in here. Just so when we do call this, it sees that we're including tails, resources, texture. Like that. That's good. I'm also going to have a constructor just because might as well. Just to make sure that it is seeing it and it's not got some weird stuff going on. We don't want this SF texture thing at all. Here we want a shared pointer to C texture. I think I do want to copy it. Or actually no, we might want to move it actually. Because we copy it into the function and then we copy it into this versus just doing one copy. It's got no effect. Okay, yeah, I'll do it by const reference then. So we don't need to copy it into the function. What's this all about? You are defined. Oh, it's not marked override. My bad. I'm very sorry. Don't need the texture there. So obviously here we need to get size and stuff, which we can do. We can have that. We can have the texture resource do that stuff. So obviously we need to get size, so we can have a no discard sf vector 2f get size constant here, just return. Well, we might as well put it in the source file because we have the source file. Return texture dot get size. It's a vector 2u. I don't know what other functions we need. Oh yeah, we need to get underlying here. So instead of doing it every frame, we might just be able to have a pointer to the underlying thing. Like this. So then every time we set the texture, if it's not valid, we don't do that, but if it is valid, then we I want to say underlying, so it's not a pointer. But if it is valid, then we can not only set the texture coordinates, but also say underlying is equal to texture get underlying SF texture, like that. And then this, instead of being texture, we can say underlying. And then this will make it only a tiny bit bigger, because it's only a single pointer. Oh, copy constructor, yeah, whatever. Does this have copy constructors and stuff? No. Does component have anything? No. Object allows copying and stuff. I feel like everything should be copyable and movable as much as possible. Only when it like can't. So if you're using a unique pointer, but even then, I feel like making if it's not too hard to make a duplicate function, or whatever it's called, I can't remember what it's called, duplicate, something like that. Yeah, if it's not too hard to make that, then you might as well. Anyway, there you go, that's the texture, or the sprite component. So now when we actually use it, instead of doing that, we can just say, pass in texture. And because we do our own checks, we can just do this as well. And I believe, yes, it works well. This is very good. Very good. That works very well. So, what other components need this? Animated sprite just uses the sprite. Yeah, that's an animation. Animations don't use SFML specific things, I don't think, apart from maybe frame, but that just uses a rect, yeah. In here, it's all fine. Don't use SFML specific stuff. No, it's just ranges. So, yeah, that's all good. Camera doesn't. Circle shape, we don't even have our own shapes. Convex, particle, component, it doesn't even do anything at the moment. Shape, sprite component, we've done that. Text, our font. We want to use our own font. Font? We do want to use our own font. The text doesn't really work either, so it's a bit naff, but we can do a std shared pointer to... We don't even have the resource type for this, do we? We need to make another resource type. Oh my goodness, that's a jump scare. Tails engine include resources, make a new resource, texture, font. We could also make a resource type for like levels and things as well, although levels might straight up just be their own resource type. Like the level class might just be its own thing, so we might not even need to do that. Yeah, I do want to modularize Tails engine, put it all into modules and stuff, but I also kind of don't want to because it's almost meant to be like a product of its time in a way. I don't even know what that means. It's just something about it where it's like, no, it should be headers. It should be... yeah, I mean, it's using C++20 already, so it's not like it's going to be any downside using modules, because modules are C++20. The only thing is, I think MSVC at the moment is the only one that supports them very well. And obviously I want this to be as supported as possible on like loads of compilers, so... Oops. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we have our... where is it? Resources. Font. We have our font. Include the config and include the resources resource, and also include SFML's thing as well. We want where is it? Font. Yeah. We want a font. We also want the load function. We could say return font.load, or what is it? Open from file. This is the reason why I use the constructors in the other resource manager, because fonts don't have load from file, they have open from file. So the concept to just say if it has load from file, let it be a resource doesn't work. You've got to have open from file as well, and then it's like two different functions that do the same thing. Like, I don't know why they renamed it. They almost certainly have a reason to, but I don't know. I just find it a bit annoying. But hey, I'm doing my own thing anyway. I'm gonna write my own abstractions for these at some point, so it's fine. We can just return the font here. There you go. So yes, now what we can do is have a C font, which we want to forward declare. I don't know why it puts in its own namespace up here. Put it up here instead. We can keep our font, keep our original SF font as well, because this will be our underlying one. But in our, where is it? Here's this get font. We want to be a shared pointer to C font. Why are you? Oh, because it's constant expression. Okay, whatever. Set string here. This font will be shared pointer. Man, why is it so complicated doing all this stuff? I don't know why I'm saying this. It's C++. It's always complicated. There we go. That should be that. This should be this. Where is it? These are going to be const as well. They probably should be const. It's weird that C++ doesn't have const by default. This is obviously texture. We want this to be underlying. Before we do that, we want to do fonts. We then want to say underlying is going to be the font get underlying, and we can say SF font. There you go. I prefer having the angle brackets for these. Personal preference. Doesn't really make any sense, but I prefer it. Get texture. No, we don't want to get texture. We instead want to do the underlying there. Say if underlying, do that. Else states.texture equals no pointer. Underlying. It's gonna be no, this is a structured binding. These can all be const. Everything can be constant, essentially. Way more things than you realise can be constant. It's crazy. Y can be const, X can't be const apparently there. I'm making it constant anyway. What's it saying now? Constant expression. What? They're just set to 0. What are these even used in? Here. But they're just 0. Oh, that's why I can't be. Okay, so Y, I assume, is for multiple lines, but because it's not, okay, whatever. That's that. These can all be const. Yeah, alright. So we have our font here. How big is this? Ooh. How big is this locale string? 56. Yikes. That's our font. Tile map, I believe, is just a child of... No, it's not. This needs its own texture thing as well. I don't even know if I'm going to keep this underlying thing. Chances are I'm going to get rid of the member and just do it on the fly. I feel like that's probably going to be a lot nicer. Also, why is the set map texture? It should be called get map texture. Why was it called set map texture? Why is this constant expression? I don't even know if that works being constant expression. Oh well. That's fine. Underlying is not used or something. Yeah, not used. We want to include... where is it? Resources. Resource. No, not resource. Texture. We don't need to include this as well. I just realised. Because the texture, our texture includes it. So up here, when we're doing equal, the tile map is the texture. So we want to change this to a shared pointer to C texture, and we also want to do a constant reference as well. Might as well. I don't really use shared pointers, so I'm not entirely sure what the whole like semantic thing with const reference is with shared pointers, because const reference with a unique pointer is it's just like a view into it. You're not passing ownership, but then at that point you might as well just use a raw pointer. That'll be your view essentially. Anyway, the texture, if texture is valid, then we can set underlying equal to texture get underlying SF texture. Where is it? The text. I don't even know if I set the font, the underlying font. I set it here, but font here this. If font, then we want to say underlying equals to font get underlying SF font. Okay, so that's cool. If I now take this and I do this, should still all work, I think. Hopefully. Nope. Constant expression. Cannot resolve constant expression. Yeah, I was thinking that. Let's not do constant expression then, and let's just return font. Do that. There we go. Okay, nice. That's good. So that's all very nice. I think it's good enough for me for now. And made some cracking progress. Redid that. Actually, no, the audio stuff. The sound bus has a unique pointer for the sound. This then holds a sound buffer. Actually, I don't know. So the issue with the audio is the actual sound object. It requires that you have... It requires a buffer. So it's different from... Well, no, it's not different from font or thingy. It's the same as font and sprite and stuff. They all have constructors which mandate that you have a buffer. You have to have a buffer or a texture or a font when you use any of these classes in SFML3 now, which is why I, for the sprite component and stuff, I made my own sprite thing with the vertex thing, the vertex array. It's why I made my own text rendering. It's why I'm using a unique pointer here, so that I can create the sound only when I need it to play, versus just having the sound and only playing it when I need it to play, because it needs a buffer. So I suppose I could just have a default buffer with nothing in it, and then change what buffer it uses, because this has a, yeah, I suppose I could just do that, and then set the sound to play be something. Yeah, I think I'll just do that, because this is now saying, it's in, well, one, it's incomplete, but also two, so you can't, doesn't have a constructor or whatever it'll say in here. It's got, no, you can't do this because the constructor isn't working, it's implicitly deleted. So we need to actually have this be an actual constructor. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to have a sound buffer, say empty buffer. We need to then include sound buffer. Get rid of these. I want to have sound be the empty buffer. And then do it like this. Yeah, we want, well, the iBus, it's just this resource stuff. Implicit copy constructor is deprecated because it has a user declared destructor. Okay. I'll do the things here for you. Okay, so our sound, we'll just have an empty buffer to start off with, and then we can just change the buffer that's being used. The set resource, here we can just say, have it be a shared pointer of C sound, which will need to be a thing. Do I just, what do I call it? Do I call it sound buffer, or what? I'll call it sound buffer, just makes sense I think. And then up in the include, obviously. Okay, run that, and then get the sound stuff. Sound buffer, there we go. Got the config, get the resource, get the SFML sound buffer, get the load here. Get the underlying implementation. Then we can add whatever we need to later. So now bus here needs to have the, don't need the resource manager. We do need sound buffer for this. This should be derives sound buffer. I'll do it to do here, say make more generic sound base sound resource, something like that. Then in here, this needs to override the const shared pointer sound buffer reference instead. Right, so we want to take our buffer, set it equal to resource here, and then we have a create sound function. We can actually just say sound.setBuffer to be, what we're going to say, if buffer exists, then we can set the buffer. We also want to check if the SFML buffer exists. So SF sound buffer. This obviously needs to be wrapped in here like that, meaning we don't need this create sound function. This set resource here doesn't need to be a thing. Don't need that set resource. Yeah, this we can definitely have a shared pointer thing coming in here. The sound buffer. It just needs to do that, and then this. Why is it so? Oh, it's because sound is not initialized. Okay, well, let's do M sound then. Actually, no, we don't want the empty buffer. We want to do the resource underlying at SF sound buffer depointed. Set the buffer to the resource. Now, obviously, this can fail spectacularly, but I don't really care. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. So that's good. Don't need the exception anymore. Very nice. That's our sound bus. So that sounds good. Yeah, it should work quite nicely, I think. So now everything's using the same system. I don't actually have any sound to play, so I can't actually test it, but I can test it in my own time, fix it up, whatever. There you go. New resource manager. Very nice. Very nice indeed. Anyway, thank you for watching this. I don't know if I will do more of these recordings. Chances are I won't. But I do want to do more general YouTube stuff, so see what happens there. Hope this helped somehow, and have fun.